Wisconsin Live Desk. First day back here on the desk for me in quite some time. Had a little bit of vacation, so we'll see if I remember how to do this. But we got things ready for you on this Wednesday afternoon. It is a rainy one here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We'll tell you that first and foremost as we give you a bit of the moody view there from our Estabrook Park tower camera of downtown Milwaukee. We just had some big storms roll through where our studio is, just north of downtown up in Brown Deer, Wisconsin. So keeping an eye on that, and we should get an update on the weather from one of our weather experts back there in the office after they get a chance to catch their breath after the Wisconsin weather experts precedes us each and every Monday through Friday here on Fox Local as well as on the FOX6 Milwaukee YouTube channel. So while we're keeping an eye on that for you here locally, a number of different stories we want to bring you as we do a quick rip around of some of the things we're tracking and then what we'll start with here on the Wisconsin Live Desk on this Wednesday afternoon. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas is addressing the Greater Waco, Texas Chamber today, and we will hear what the governor has to say if those remarks continue. Right now at the White House, President Donald Trump has welcomed the new president of Poland, who arrived at the White House today, trying to strengthen the relationship between those two countries, as well as making the case that the U.S. needs to maintain a strong military presence in Poland. Of course, that's a country that neighbors up against Ukraine, as that has been such a topic of conversation since the war and the invasion from Russia began, and many Ukrainians fled to Poland now almost 3 years ago or so. That visit continues an overseas trip since the president of Poland first took office last month, so continuing to work with allies around the world. And we'll get you some other updates from the White House on this Wednesday as well. But first and foremost, we're going to start with this. Congressional Democrats, for the most part, representatives, are discussing the possibility of banning stock trading from congressional lawmakers. So this is a press conference being held right now with different members of, I believe, the Democratic Party specifically, about whether or not members of Congress should be allowed to actually trade stocks, or whether some of the information they gather from being parts of committees and their role as legislators in this country should forbid them from that. Another line of questioning as well from the media there gathered with the number of different representatives they're taking questions. So let's listen in live here on the Wisconsin Live Desk to the questions.
The wrong person to be here. And I think many of that that has been reflected in some of the terrible legislation that predates all of us up here. And so my thought to those people is if you want to trade stocks, go to Wall Street. Don't do it to Congress.
Yeah, you guys jump in.
No, I mean, if anyone says, this isn't fair, I'm going to have to divest all my stocks if I'm going to run for Congress, maybe you should stay home. I think that, as someone, I ran for office, I was a waitress, plenty of people have to make tons of sacrifices to run for office. But I think that really the idea that this is some undue burden is outrageous. And the fact of the matter is, respectfully, and I know I may offend some of my colleagues here, but millionaires are very overrepresented in Congress. And
No offense.
no offense.
I wish I were more offended.
Little too many here. And with respect to the proportion of the American people, and if we want a Congress that reflects the actual country that we seek to represent and fight for, we need to have working class people who live here. And I actually believe, and who work here. And I feel that actually banning the trade of individual stock can help even the playing field and, perhaps open the door to other provisions that can make this an easier place for working class people to get elected to and serve.
I can't remember who had hands up earlier, sorry.
Going back to one of the earlier questions, can you expand on why this bill does not address the president or the executive, why you decided to keep it just on Congress?
Well, what I'll say is this. Many of us, I think in both parties, support including the president and vice president. We are working to see if we can get a critical mass of support to include them or not. If there is, that can always be introduced as an amendment or as a separate bill. But in the meantime, we are putting in this bill that has broad consensus to get the process moving, to keep the pressure on while that conversation continues. I certainly support it. I think many people here do. We're working to see if we have that critical mass.
To the Republicans here, though, has the president advocated that against this bill being expanded? Or
I've got no indication of that whatsoever. All I've gotten is support for this, and what we're trying to focus on, and I think rightly, is can we not look in the mirror as the members of Congress and go ahead and decide how we should operate. Start there. But it's really easy for us to go point, and I would say this last year, a year ago with President Biden, President Trump, doesn't matter. This is not a political issue. But we've got to work through executive branch application and getting the votes for that. I would love to have that debate. I would love in regular order to have this come before the committee, come before the admin committee, and then offer amendments and have that debate and bring it forward and offer an amendment that it applies equally to all three branches. That would be a fantastic debate. And I would likely support going in that direction. But I think we need to focus right now on one very clear message. Congress, those of us here, we're responsible for managing our own affairs. We shouldn't be trading stocks while we're voting on these important issues. I think it's that simple.
Well, some of those remarks continue. We'll try to get you back to some of that line of questioning there from the media in Washington. We do want to mention something else that is happening. This is a live feed from our sister station in Minneapolis right now, Fox 9 in the Twin Cities, a week after the mass shooting there in Minneapolis that killed 2 young children, injured 21 others. Vice President J.D. Vance is actually at Annunciation Catholic Church today, paying respect to the victims and meeting with some of the families of the victims of that shooting. Vance, along with his wife, the Second Lady, Usha Vance, are visiting this Minneapolis church today, said to be hosting a series of private meetings with the families of those affected by this. Of course, this was the horrible news we all received last week. 2 children killed, 18 others hurt, along with 3 adults injured as well, when a shooter opened fire from outside of that church window with the Catholic school students there gathering for morning mass. This was August 27th. 3 adults in their 80s were hit, while all of those children were also injured. And the 2 who died, 10-year-old Harper Moisky and 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel, the 2 children killed in this. Police say the shooter did leave a manifesto that was filled with a series of hateful remarks toward a number of different groups. The chief there in Minneapolis says the gunman was obsessed with other mass shooters as well and wanted to become infamous. So today, a day when the vice president and the second lady are visiting with families of those affected by this tragedy. At the same time, the Minnesota Democratic Party did criticize Vice President Vance's record on gun violence as he was preparing for this visit to the Twin Cities, saying that Vance has called shootings, quote, fake problems and a distraction, and that he has also opposed red flag laws and bans on assault rifles during his time as a senator before he became the vice president of the United States. The chair of that Democratic Party in Minnesota, Richard Karlbaum, said in a statement, quote, if J.D. Vance truly wanted to support Minnesotans affected by gun violence, he would work to pass the common sense gun safety legislation he spent his entire career opposing. We are past the point of showing up with hollow words and empty hands. This appearance is a waste of taxpayer dollars, nothing more than political theater from an administration desperate to hide from its own failures. So what you're seeing outside, I believe those might be Secret Service members outside of Annunciation Church in Minneapolis, the Catholic church there, where 2 children were killed last week in a shooting that injured 21 other people. The vice president continuing to meet with the families of some of those victims. While that happens, again, we're not expecting to really get much more than just an appearance as he walks out back to his vehicles after that. But we'll keep an eye on things for you there while we'll get you back to some of the line of questioning that media members are posing to Democratic leaders in Congress, pushing for the ban of members of Congress' ability to trade stocks while they serve in either the House or the Senate. Let's listen back in live in D.C.
Some of the different pieces that maybe hadn't been in the bills. We also looked at the Senate bill and just kind of compared the two, because obviously the closer the two are, the better. But I've been in touch with Senator Kelly as well. He was just out in Seattle. We were talking about this, and I think that there's just a lot of interest. And the bigger the vote is in the House, we all know this, the bigger the vote is in the House, the better it is for the Senate, because it puts pressure on the Senate. It makes our bill the main bill, and hopefully that then becomes the vehicle that moves forward in the Senate. But it was a pretty detailed process, and everybody got to weigh in, and different people had concerns about different things, and we just worked through it until we got to something that everyone felt good about. As Alex said, not a place where we left feeling like, oh, I gave something up. I really do think, as all of us have said, that it was just strong.
Just very quick, the one thing that I immediately noticed when I was in the room with all my colleagues here is that I think an impetus for a lot of us running for office is to resolve injustices in the system. We have different perspectives on what that is. We all agree on this. And the disconnect between the public and this institution in terms of that gap in trust, this is a main, huge driver of that. So that was a common belief that all of us had. And I'm just really proud that this group came together on it.
Last question.
Talk about, of course, trying to cover as many loopholes as possible. But is that kind of what gives you guys this confidence that this bill could pass now, or do you feel like this topic is just kind of reached tipping point?
Yeah, I mean, we got to get it to the floor. But I think putting this all together, I think has given us now a much better position because we're now united that it has the best elements of each of the bills. And it's really fully thought through. I mean, we've tried to think through everything. It doesn't mean to say that it shouldn't be amended or that it couldn't be made better through the legislative process. We're all about that here. But, you know, to have this deal with disgorgement of profits, to have a 10% penalty if you're going to go ahead and trade even though you're not supposed to apply to family members and dependent children, but to be very clean and very specific as it relates to the securities in question, and to also allow for the ability to have a tax ability to move it, say, from equities over into a fund to encourage members of Congress to do it. We try to listen to members and try to take in information about, okay, we want everybody to do this when they get here to address that issue about, well, why do you get people to run for Congress? Well, fine, we won't make you have a big tax bill, but you are going to have to, divest of all of those individual equities and put them into broadly held funds so you're not being able to day trade.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think there's an external factor and an internal factor. The external factor is that, like, I cannot begin to describe when this issue comes up at town halls or at events anywhere in the country, people go nuts because it is crazy to the average person that this has been allowed to go on for so long. And I do think that, in part, due to some of your great coverage these last few months, we have reached a tipping point where the pressure from outside the building is becoming too much for leadership to deny. Inside the building, it's been a great collaboration. I'm only in my second term. I'm relatively new here. I hadn't worked with several of the people on the stage before, but every time we met, people came prepared. We in a painstaking way, went through every possible issue or concern that we could think of, and everybody here, surrendered some of their own time in the limelight, surrendered some credit, worked together because we just care about getting something done. So I got to give a great amount of credit to everybody who's been working on this. It's been a very good group to work with, and we're determined to get this done. So.
Thanks, everybody. We got to go vote. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, and with that, those members of Congress, the House of Representatives there, continue their work today after announcing what they hope will lead to a possible ban on members of Congress trading stocks, although a lot would have to happen, especially for those mostly Democratic lawmakers there, to see that through either the House or the Senate, currently both controlled by Republicans in Washington, D.C. All right, since that's wrapping up, we're going to take a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. A couple other things to tell you about once we get back, including an interesting story that our Waukesha County reporter Brett Lemoyne is following today, a freezer that broke at a local food pantry, and the impact of that, how you can help as well as they try to bounce back. All that happening while we also give you a bit of an eerie shot there. Now, a lot of this is just the way that the iris of the camera handles clouds and some sun, but also gives you a sense for just what an odd day it is out there in Milwaukee. This is from our Esterbrook Park Tower camera, those low clouds, some sunshine, there's rain throughout different parts of the Milwaukee area right now, while others are not dealing with that. An interesting Wednesday, to say the least, in the weather department. We'll have much more for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk when we come right back in just 2 minutes. Thanks for watching.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, it's the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Defmo back with you here, 12:46. We keep on rolling. Ben Handelman handles the second hour duties for me today once we do our handoff around 1:30, but still a lot to get to before that as we continue to keep an eye on things happening in Washington, D.C., as well as what I wanted to mention once more again, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, making an appearance at the Catholic Church and School in Minneapolis, where that awful shooting happened last week. The Vice President, as well as the Second Lady, meeting with some of the families of victims at Annunciation Catholic Church today. And we'll continue to bring you updates on that throughout the Wisconsin Live Desk as we can. But in the meantime, we want to get you to another story that's happening right now locally, and a chance for you to help as we bring in our Waukesha County reporter, Brett Lemoyne. Great to have you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, as always, Brett. What are you working on today?
Hey, Carl, thank you for having me. I wish I had some better news for some 1,000 families that rely on Friends with Food here. The organization is in a bit of a predicament. Workers and volunteers came in on Tuesday after the holiday break and realized some unfortunate news that their walk-in cooler that you see right here behind me was not functioning. Normally they keep it at about 30 degrees inside. Volunteers say it was 60 degrees. In fact, they said it was actually cooler outside of the cooler than it was inside, and that has had a tremendous impact. If you take a look over here, you can see some of the produce that normally would be in the cooler, and now it is not because the cooler's not functioning. This has created a big problem for the organization. They had to throw out 50 gallons of milk. They were able to salvage a lot of the produce, though, and they were able to distribute that to some other nonprofits in the area, about 3 other nonprofits in the area. I want to bring in Rochelle and Jamie. They're both with Friends with Food, and Rochelle is the executive director, Jamie the operations manager. And ladies, this was really a devastating blow to the organization. Just tell me, how this is going to impact things as we head into the coming weeks.
We are going to be struggling with Thursday. We actually have families come on Thursday, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to get produce and dairy for Thursday, and try to get our coolers back up and operating as well. Yeah. So it's a double blow there because, we're trying our best to serve those families in need.
Yeah, and Jamie, we're talking about thousands of families, right? I mean, in August, you guys hit kind of a big milestone in terms of the number of people.
Right, we had a record-setting August of about 1,400 visits, over 1,400 visits that we had here, and we're only open 2 to 3 times a week in the month of August, yes.
Wow. And Carl, what sets Friends with Food apart from some other organizations like the Food Pantry Serving Waukesha County, for example, is that you don't have any barriers. You've removed all of the barriers that people encounter when they go to an agency like this to get food. Explain what the criteria is to be able to receive food here.
You have to be in need. I mean,
it's
just that simple.
Yeah.
And except the food that we have some food from CAC, which is Community Action Coalition, and we have to do an income verification on that, meaning that we have a chart and we ask them, are you above or below this level? So if somebody is like $20 above, normally wouldn't qualify for the program at all. And we're seeing a lot of families just at that threshold, and they are just as deserving as everyone else.
Yeah. Every time I've done a number of stories, Carl, with Friends with Food over the years, and every time I come, Rochelle says we've hit another milestone. There's more people than ever that we've been serving, and so it's really quite eye-opening. Now we'll get to brass tacks here because this is expensive. This walk-in cooler, you've only had it for about 3 years, correct, right? And it's been functioning great up until presumably weekend. Tuesday or this weekend. How much is it going to cost to fix?
It's about $5,000 to fix, not including the food.
Yeah, that's it. For a nonprofit that, I mean, you struggle, frankly, month after month just to keep the doors open. Right. When you heard a $5,000 bill, Jamie, what was your first thought?
Oh, my heart just sank. my heart sank. And, you know, over the years, I started coming here actually a couple years ago as a customer, and then became a volunteer, and then started working here with Rochelle, and we've gotten to be quite close. Just to see her in tears yesterday was heartbreaking. And that 5,000, we had other plans for that. Well, that plan was just to keep our doors open for several, you know, for the months coming. Not this is a huge hit. This is a huge hit. Just to get it fixed, and then how to replace this food. We're pleading for help.
Yeah. And you've asked for donations. You're hoping that maybe there's some sort of corporate sponsor or someone who can pool some money together to help you kind of out of this hole. You've raised about $2,000 so far.
Right.
Not quite to the goal that you need, and this has to get fixed ASAP, right? I mean, you've already told some of the people that come not to expect dairy and produce as much, and of course, that is what also sets you apart too, because you have those in abundance normally.
Yeah, and you know, our dairy is very shy already. We're in the dairy state, and we struggle to get milk, and we had milk in here. And I was crying over milk the other day. Literally, we had to spill it out. That was so devastating to see all that food. But you know, there is a bright side to that we were still able to take that food and help other organizations and help other people in the community. So our loss was their gain, and it just ends up that we're still doing our mission. We're still serving those other families in need.
Well, again, 1,400 families, Carl, in just the month of August alone. So that's families. That's not individuals. We're just talking family households. So that really speaks to the need here, Carl. And hopefully people watching, we're going to put a link to Friends with Food's website on fox6now.com and Fox Local Mobile in case anyone is out there watching this and wants to help out. Back to you, Carl.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Breck, if you could kind of relay a couple follow-up questions that I have. So first and foremost, it sounds like the money to fix that cooler. In case people don't find the follow-up story, maybe they can just share that link or that website. What's the best way to kind of find a way to donate to them right now?
Yeah, if people are watching right now, because we don't have it on our website, where can we direct them to go to give you some donations?
Sure, that would be friendswithfoodwi.org.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, the links are right there too. And like Rochelle and Jamie said, Carl, it's not only monetary donations that they need, but once they get the cooler fixed, they're going to need some food donations as well, because they want to kind of fill in that gap that was created over the last couple of days to be able to get food to people that need it. So that's also going to be something, down the line, hopefully this week, hopefully later this week when it gets fixed. But that will be needed as well, food donations.
Any organizations that they would recommend people go to if they're, regulars with Friends with Food, but now need to go somewhere else in the meantime? Any ones that they recommend or partner with?
Yeah, Carl is asking if there are people that, we're looking for some of these items, where can they go? Is there anyone that is kind of, a backup for some of these folks right now?
Other food pantries as well. There's a few in our area, but we have everyone come. 17% of our audience does come from Milwaukee County too.
Wow. Which is amazing. That's telling, because that's a big chunk of people that are coming over the county line from quite a distance to be able to come here. What do you attribute that to? Is there not an equivalent in Milwaukee County like there is Friends with Food?
That's what we've heard. People love the opportunity to shop for their own food. It throws so much dignity in being a human, basically, to actually choose the product that they wish to put in their cart. And that's what I feel like sets us apart. Plus, I think I heard a comment the other day that somebody wasn't at our pantry for 1 week, and our volunteers were asking where they were. So there's a sense of belonging here, and there's a sense of like somebody's looking out for me in a time period where it could be a little bit doom and gloom for them. It's really hard to come in our doors, but once you come in and you're met with friendly faces, and our volunteers are wonderful, and they are the heart of our organization.
Well, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Jamie, but because you were in that position before you became a volunteer, What is it like that first time when you do have to walk through the door and you do have to ask for help?
Right, it was during COVID. I was an instructor and a substitute teacher, and everything shut down for me, and I personally was getting no income coming in, and I saw a Facebook post about Friends with Food, and I saw they had produce, and it looked like it was fresh produce. It looked like beautiful, fresh off the farm produce. I'm like, ooh, that's not what I think of a typical food pantry. And I walked in and I'm like, I've never done this before, and I never thought I would need a food pantry. And as time went by, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not in a position at that moment to financially contribute, but I can contribute my time. And so I started volunteering, and that was, you're gonna make me cry. And it was like 3 years ago now. And I look at this as, yeah, this is a home away from home. And to see something like this just happen to us, if such a financial hit is devastating.
Sure. Yeah, because you don't get any federal dollars. This is all pretty much, you live on donations, boots on the ground, and then you rely on, I guess, where does the food come from? Explain that to our audience.
So Feeding America is our #1 source where we get the food from. Also Community Action Coalition, and then we do a lot of pickups. So throughout the time period from COVID to now, we've had to rescue more food. So our expenses have gone up with our box truck, our forklifts, everything like that. So our expenses have increased, but the donations have pulled away a little bit. So that's why we're struggling. And we've applied for many different grants. It's a very competitive situation out there with many different nonprofits trying to get the same funding.
Well, and I suppose too, Rochelle, just to kind of wrap this up and put a button on it here too, the fact that you are rescuing that food and that food has already had kind of a shelf life before it got here, that speaks to the need for this walk-in cooler even more, right? Because if you don't have a place to put it, it's going to spoil even faster, right?
Absolutely. We try not to let that happen, because we will outsource if we need to. But that produce is like key to us, and that dairy is key to us. Yeah. So we hope that people are going to come through and realize who we are and help us out.
Well, Rochelle and Jamie, thank you both so much. We'll let you get back to work here, and we'll wrap it up here with Carl. So again, we've got all that information that we'll be posting on Fox Local, and certainly an organization that helps so many people each and every week, each and every month. We're talking about 1,400 people just the last month alone, Carl.
Yeah, it's impossible not to be moved by it, Brett. Thinking about just how simple it can be to appreciate fresh produce, right? To have that as an option, no matter the health benefits, and then the dignity side of it as well, as was really eloquently spoken there by both those women. So thank you for bringing that. I just did it myself. You can go to the website very easily, Friends with Food. It's the site out in Waukesha County, friendswithfoodwi.org. Right there, if you Google it, you'll find it. The donate button is right there, so hopefully some of our viewers do that. And we'll hear the full story from Brett later today. Thank you very much for bringing us that very important story from Waukesha County today.
Thank you, Carl.
We'll let him get back to his work telling that story for us. But again, if there's a way to help, they are out about $5,000 to fix that walk-in cooler, let alone, as you heard them say, the food that they will need to stock that cooler inside after the fact. They've raised about $2,000 so far. That's the really good news, but hoping more and more people respond and help support an organization that has helped so many people in Waukesha County. That astounding number that Brett relayed there, 1,400 families in the month of August alone. The need is very much there. Hopefully some of the donations can meet the need. We are going to take another break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk as we are just at that 1 o'clock hour. Much more to come on this Wednesday afternoon, but a powerful story there from our Waukesha County reporter, Brett Lemoyne. We'll be right back.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. We want to pop something up for you that just is starting right now. You're seeing, stepping into the podium there, one of the members of the Milwaukee Common Council. That would be Alderperson Jocasta Zamaripa of District 8. Let's listen in to what she has to say right now. Community leaders here holding a press conference highlighting with the Department of Human Services in Milwaukee, their new disaster aid rules. They're seeking to bar states, nonprofits, and volunteer groups who provide assistance to undocumented immigrants from receiving federal funds in response to that. So we'll have what this response is from Milwaukee leaders for what is happening nationally.
As we call out the federal government, we did just learn that DHS has created new rules regulating how disaster relief organizations like FEMA can partner with local nonprofits and charities. DHS is changing its disaster aid contract so that states, nonprofits, and volunteer groups that receive federal funds can no longer provide assistance to undocumented immigrants. This is a historic shift. FEMA has never before required disaster relief groups to screen for immigration status. This moves disaster response into immigration enforcement territory. Our community desperately needs federal aid as we recover from the historic flooding that occurred here in Milwaukee just a few short weeks ago. We hope that the administration will approve this funding as soon as possible to allow people to get the help that they need and deserve. I know that you know I have served as a legislator at the state level, and I now am an alder here in the city of Milwaukee. I never hesitated to serve my constituents, no matter their status, whether they were fifth-generation U.S. citizens or brand new immigrants here, undocumented. They were my constituents, and I served them. And I implore my federal government to follow my example in serving all of our constituents. I think of the immigrant heritage of the great state of Wisconsin. You know, oftentimes you'll hear me saying Latinos are the future of this state. I would go so far as to say that immigrants are the past, the present, and the future here in Wisconsin. And I want to remind my constituents, and I know some may struggle and wonder about this topic on immigration and whether or not it affects them if they're U.S. citizens. And let me tell you, I'm so happy that we have leaders of nonprofit organizations, because I can attest to the fact that they serve U.S. citizens, legal permanent residents, and undocumented immigrants. So when you take their funding away, that means they're not serving the U.S. citizen at home who thinks that perhaps this issue doesn't affect them. You're taking funding away from their community, their neighborhood, their families, because they won't be able to access funding that they need and deserve from their federal government. So we implore the federal government to do the right thing and to make sure to get resources and disaster relief to the city of Milwaukee as soon as possible. Now it is my honor to introduce to you Daryl Morin from Forward Latino.
Thank you very much for those remarks and for your generous introduction, Alderwoman. My name is Daryl Morin. I'm the national president of Forward Latino, a nonprofit, nonpartisan service and advocacy organization with members and affiliates across 29 states, and we're proudly headquartered right here in the great state of Wisconsin. I'm here today to bring attention to the deeply troubling changes recently made by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to all their contracts regarding disaster relief. These changes not only threaten to delay the emergency assistance that's so desperately needed following a tragedy, but do so to such an extent that they will undoubtedly place lives at risk, especially the lives of the most vulnerable in our neighborhoods. Let me be clear about what these changes are. First, the new contracts language that DHS is insisting upon bars state agencies, nonprofits, and volunteer organizations from providing aid to undocumented immigrants during times of crisis. This means that when someone's home has just been destroyed by a hurricane, or by a tornado, or burned down by a wildfire, or swept away in a flood, emergency responders will be required to first get certified proof of someone's legal status before they can provide assistance. At a time when seconds count and compassion should lead, bureaucracy and fear will instead be the first response they get from their federal government. Number two, the new contracts further require all aid organizations to share information that they may have with immigration authorities and grant access to immigration enforcement actions, even in the midst of a disaster zone. At the same time, they're prohibiting these agencies and relief groups from warning communities about such immigration enforcement activities. This turns emergency responders into de facto agents for immigration enforcement, undermining trust and putting immigration enforcement ahead of the benefit and welfare of the community. Lastly, these new contracts explicitly ban the use of federal disaster relief funds for any programs that DHS deems may be related to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. This is a direct attack on the efforts that ensure fair access and equitable recovery for all communities affected by disaster. Let me be clear. These changes are not only immoral, but they're very likely unlawful. They represent a radical departure from the mission of FEMA, which is supposed to provide rapid and effective disaster response and assist with recovery in all communities, including those of color. If these provisions are allowed to stand, they will serve as yet another example of this administration's willingness to endanger lives and undermine public safety in order to pursue their anti-immigrant agenda, even in a time of crisis. As Americans, as people of faith, as human beings, we just can't let this stand. That's why we're asking all of you watching here today to reach out to your U.S. senators, to your congressmen and women, and urge them to demand that DHS remove these contract requirements from FEMA, and to do so immediately. Lives are on the line. Thank you all for coming out this morning, and God bless. I'll now have the great honor of turning it over to the Executive Director and founder of Renace, Pastor Patricia Ruiz-Cantu.
Thank you for being here. My name is Patricia Ruiz-Cantu, and I'm the founder of Renace. And Renace is a faith-based organization that serves every single citizen here in the city of Milwaukee, in the state, and throughout the United States. When a natural disaster happens, families run to make sure that their loved ones are safe. They don't run to pick up their papers, they don't run to pick up their passport, their birth certificate, or anything like that. Their main goal is to make sure that they save lives. I want for us to think about that for a minute. Under the new DHS rules, organizations like the Red Cross, Salvation Army, and others will be forced to turn away undocumented families in the middle of disaster. So think about that. If somebody looking like me and I don't have my passport, I'm a naturalized citizen, and if I cannot prove that I'm a naturalized citizen, I could be turned away with my family. Just imagine a mother with small children, cold, hungry, without shelter, being told, sorry, we cannot help you because you do not have your documents at hand. That contradicts our faith. This country was founded on faith. In God we trust. So how could we be contradicting ourselves? Christ has taught us that we have to love our neighbor with status or without status. And if we say that we're Christians and we say that we follow Jesus and we cannot uphold to that just one little thing that he says, to love our neighbor, how could we not provide shelter? How could we discriminate? Jesus Christ, God loves us all because we're all the children under God. And if he doesn't discriminate, who are we to discriminate? And we shouldn't have that discrimination to offer aid. As Christians, we must raise our voice and demand that those unjust policies do not deny bread, shelter, hope to those who need it. So my request today is not only to pray, but also to look at your neighbor and say, would I deny shelter? Would I deny help to my neighbor? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any questions at this time? You know, we do have, Daryl Morin does want to make a brief statement around the National Guard as well. If there's no questions on this topic, we'll move into that. About this new DHS ruling? I haven't yet heard from any constituents. I'm not sure if any of our nonprofits want to chime in at this.
I just want to say that I actually did a video yesterday talking about this specific topic because as the Red Cross started providing assistance, people were asking me, are they really going to ask for all the different status? And people were asking me, well, I'm a permanent resident. Is it okay if I go? And I said, well, as long as you have something to identify yourself, they're not going to ask for anything right now, but if you need help, you need to go and ask for help to the Red Cross. So yes, since this weekend, when the news came out, you know, social media is like wildfire, everybody finds out. So they were calling me, asking me if it was safe to go in and ask for help. And I told them, yes, for right now, go in and receive help and sign up for it.
What should they do if they have any questions? Because that is a very valid question that many of them have during this time. What should they do if they have questions and they have doubts? Like, should I, give my information away? Like, my family's mixed or XYZ?
So I'm really happy with the Red Cross. The Red Cross, for example, did all of their information in English and in Spanish, and they do have a QR code where people could actually go in their phone and scan both of the codes in Spanish and in English and in other languages, but those are the two that I'm aware of, and I tried, and they work fine. And right now, the Red Cross is in 2 parks, and I can't think of the name of the 2 parks, but I'll give you the information, meeting with people that need assistance, both in the north side and the south side.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
We're all aware of the tremendous flooding that happened here in Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago. I will share that if these contractual demands remain in place, we will be unable to apply for any of them, because it will delay the much needed assistance we need to give our community. When those floods happened, immediately we began receiving calls, and we were able to deliver gas-powered electrical generators so that people could get their sump pumps working again and to empty out their basements. To many in our community, their home represents their nest egg, the whole of their collected wealth. And had we had to stop and ask them to go and find their documents, amongst the floating boxes in the basement, et cetera, it would have delayed things. It quite possibly could have put people's lives at risk. And in addition, it would have kept people from calling us if they had any concern that we were going to have to turn over their citizenship status to immigration. So once again, if they're left in place, we will not be able to participate in any of those programs and provide the much urgent relief that's needed.
All right. Yes. Yes, if you want to read your statement on the National Guard.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Daryl Modine, National President for Latino, and I'm going to be reading a brief statement regarding the judicial finding yesterday regarding the use of the National Guard in California. Yesterday, U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer ruled that the Trump administration's deployment of approximately 4,000 National Guard members and 700 U.S. Marines to California was unlawful. The court found that this action violated the Posse Comitatus Act, a cornerstone of American law dating back to the 19th century. The law was specifically established to prevent the use of military forces for domestic law enforcement purposes without any proper legal authorization. The Posse Comitatus Act was not born out of bureaucracy, it was born out of principle. It was crafted as a safeguard against the abuse of executive power, ensuring that no president, regardless of party, could deploy U.S. military forces within our borders for law enforcement purposes unless explicitly authorized by the U.S. Congress or by a specific statutory exception. Neither of those conditions were met in the case of the California deployment. Let us not forget, our nation fought and won its independence to escape the tyranny of a monarch who deployed his soldiers to patrol our streets and occupy our homes in the name of keeping order. The founders saw firsthand the dangers of unchecked military presence in civilian life, and in response, Congress rightfully debated, passed, and enshrined into law the Posse Comitatus Act, declaring that any person who willfully violates it may be fined or imprisoned. Any person who violates this can be fined or imprisoned for up to 2 years. At Ford Latino, yes, we do defend civil rights. We support immigrants, as we do our veterans. But above all, we defend democracy. Because without democracy, there are no civil rights. Without democracy, there is no freedom of speech. Without democracy, there is no religious freedom. And without democracy, there is no guarantee of justice. That is a belief.
Well, those comments continue from leaders here in Milwaukee about a number of different issues, including the use of the National Guard and the potential for that to happen here in Milwaukee or other cities around the country as it did in LA and Washington, D.C. We do have to take a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We keep things rolling. We have our sports director, Tim Van Voren, going to join us next after this short break. Got to check the mics with TVV and then chat some Packers ahead of Week 1. Football season is here, and Tim will be with us in just 2 minutes.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. We keep it rolling here on a Wednesday afternoon. It is game week, folks. We are ready for the NFL season. Somehow, some way, as we give you a live look at Lambeau Field there in the atrium outside of the stadium where the Packers will be hosting the rival Detroit Lions coming up this Sunday to get things going. And right on another side of the stadium, ready to get his way into practice and then chat with some of the players afterwards, Tim Van Voren joining us live ahead of a new season of Packers football, the marathon about to begin for our sports sports director, TVV there. Tim, I'll tell you a funny story before we get into some Packers chat here. I was on vacation. It was nice to have some time off before the beginning of the season. We were in Switzerland, very much logged out of everything related to work, except for two things: the Taylor Swift engagement news and the Micah Parsons trade news, the two things that got through.
That's the important stuff. Obviously, you're plugged into what's really taking place over here, pop culture and Packer football, Carl. That's outstanding. So, yeah, joining you from the south side of the stadium. You had that nice shot from the north side, and Packer football does reach around the world. Good to know, even on your downtime, you were locked in.
Packers everywhere is more than just the name of the fan base and all the events they host throughout the season. Let's get into it. You've heard from the head coach already today, Matt LaFleur, speaking before practice ahead of this key game against the Lions. The way the NFL has kind of reworked the schedule, you don't get any weeks off to kind of ease into the season. It's right away with a huge divisional matchup. What did we hear from Coach LaFleur already today, Tim?
Well, first off, I agree with you on the schedule. I've been telling people it's like NASCAR, that Daytona 500 is the biggest event of the year. It's the first event of the year. I'm not sure, it doesn't rival a Super Bowl or something. This is a big, big game for the Packers, and a big week, actually. They have two games before you even get to the next weekend: Sunday against the Lions, and then Thursday on Fox 6 against the Washington Commanders. 2 of your 8 home games against 2 other NFC powers. Very big games. You cannot really fall into an 0-2 hole. You'll be playing catch-up all season long. So that's what awaits the Packers. Looking at week 1, Matt LaFleur was talking about how this is the most playoff-like atmosphere you get during the regular season. Everybody's been missing their football. They're ready for it. They're excited. The enthusiasm is high. That would be true even without the Packers having been traded for Micah Parsons within the last week. So everything is zeroing in and pointing towards Sunday afternoon here in Green Bay.
Let me ask you again about that trade, too, because the other kind of funny thing, not to take you on my vacation travelogue here, but I was catching up on some magazines, including the Sports Illustrated NFL preview issue, and that was obviously before the trade. They were pretty down on the Packers. I think they had them picked to finish 4th in the division. So from the thoughts, not necessarily in the locker room, because they're confident no matter what, but from the thoughts locally here in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin to the national landscape, how much has that trade really changed things from what you expect, what others seem to expect of this team this year?
It has certainly ramped things up. I do agree with what you're talking about in terms of the way the Packers were perceived as an NFC playoff team, but nothing special. I think this puts the Packers up into the tier where they could be special, and I stress could. Micah Parsons by himself doesn't make them special. What does Micah Parsons do for the guys around him? Does Micah Parsons maybe cover up some of the youth and inexperience or lack of depth at cornerback? Does he make Rashawn Gary so much better on the other side that while Micah Parsons is getting double-teamed, Rashawn Gary slips in there for 10, 12 sacks himself? Does Lucas Van Ness pop up on the sack numbers? That's really what it's going to be about. Micah Parsons' impact across the board. The Packers have a very good core. Brian Gutekunst, the general manager, has built a very solid football team. To be special, though, you need more than just solid. And Micah Parsons by himself is beyond that. But what does he do for some other players, maybe elevating their profiles as well? So I do think the Packers are now up a notch in the NFC. I would still say the Eagles are the team to beat in the NFC, and the Packers are on the list of teams behind them.
Yeah, reigning champs certainly get that honor until anyone knocks them off, for sure. Break down the division for me. Obviously, the Lions, the key matchup in Week 1, but where do you see the NFC North going this year, given what seems to be a really loaded division? It's been that way for a number of years, but it seems like once again it is going to be an absolute battle to get to the top of that division specifically.
And as we sit here at the start of September, Carl, I still maintain any of the 4 teams could finish in any of the 4 places. I really, truly think that's a possibility. The Bears, they've been stockpiling talent for the last few years. They have a 4th place schedule. So they have a few advantages. Do I necessarily think that they're going to beat the other teams in the standings? No, but could it happen? I really think it could. Minnesota, rookie quarterback, maybe he's great. They have a lot of talented players on their defense, a terrific defensive coordinator in Brian Flores, and, maybe the best coach in the NFC in Kevin O'Connell. So they could be a team that, exceeds maybe legitimate expectations. The Detroit Lions last year were 15-2. They were one of the top 5 scoring teams in NFL history. That doesn't all go away just because you change your coordinators and you lose Frank Ragnow out of the offensive line. You're getting Aiden Hutchinson back, for instance. And maybe these new coordinators have a lot to offer. So Detroit could go up. Detroit could go down. And we've talked about Green Bay. Certainly should be ascending, but Green Bay was 3rd last year in the division and almost winless in division games. So the Packers definitely have to play better, have better results than they did last season. So that's your division in a nutshell as far as I see it. September, start of September, Carl, really could go any of 4 different ways.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, that's for sure, no matter who you're rooting for in that division. Last thing for you, Tim, because I know you got to head in. We'll hear a lot more from you after you get a chance to chat with the players today after practice. But whether it's specifically to the Lions game or just early in this season, maybe one thing that you're confident about when it comes to this Packers team and one big question that you have going into the NFL season.
I like the approach. The question I would have had is pass rush. Obviously, Micah Parsons addresses that, so you would hope that that is an answer there. And then for me, the corollary, I guess, to that would be, can they then defend on the back end? You're going to get quarterbacks who should have to speed everything up if the Packers are able to penetrate, get in against opposing offenses. And that would help the defensive backfield for sure, but that would still be my question. What are they going to be able to do back there? And you know, teams may now start to run against the Packers, or try to at least. They were very good against the run last year, but they lose Kenny Clark in this Micah Parsons trade, and so other guys have to shore that up. So defensively, I would say defensive backfield, now that you've added Micah Parsons, would be my number one question. What am I most solid about? I'm going to say Josh Jacobs. This guy did everything you could possibly want as a running back last season. So reliable, so durable. There's a drop-off if he were to leave because of injury or something along those lines, but I would say Josh Jacobs about as surefire as you can find. The thing about it is, Carl, he had more than 1,300 yards last year, a terrific season. Everybody would look at Josh Jacobs as a standout. Jahmyr Gibbs, who plays for the Lions, had like 100 yards more, 75 yards more last season in a backfield that also includes David Montgomery. So that just shows you what Detroit is capable of doing offensively as we get ready for this Week 1 game.
Yeah, we get to finally be over with the prognostications, go to the full analysis of what happens on the field. What season is this for you, Tim?
Started at FOX6. It wasn't even FOX6 in 1990. So Lindy Infante was the coach, Carl. That's been a lot of football games.
Love it, and I'm sure it never gets old, too, especially the anticipation for a new season. Tim Van Born reporting from outside of Lambeau Field. We'll let you get inside. Thank you so much for spending a little time talking Packers with us here on the live desk.
Yeah, Carl.
All right, as we let Tim get to his duties, man, going back some different eras of Packers football there that he has covered, and he's been there for all of them for sure, for us, even before we were a Fox affiliate here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. All right, one more break here for you on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Ben Handelman standing by actually outside the doors right now, and then we'll get much more for you in the second hour of Wild, as we like to call it.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hey, welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Deffenbaugh with you here to handle our transition to Mr. Handelman, who's right outside the door actually right now. We're going to send you out to Washington, D.C. We've seen a number of different press conferences from lawmakers outside of Congress today. This is another one. I believe that is Chris Blumenthal speaking there along with a number of others about the possible threats to reproductive rights when it comes to the Veteran Affairs and some of the abilities of members of the U.S. military to have access to abortion under the Trump administration. So while this is happening, we'll let this carry through. Ben Handelman will be with you after this on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
It has not received the attention it deserves. What it really deserves is to be abandoned, as I hope it will be, because we're going to fight it even before it's a final rule. The comment period ends today. From this day forward, make no mistake, we will fight it in the Congress, we'll fight it in the courts, we'll fight it anywhere that's necessary to preserve a woman's right over her own body and protect a woman from the effort of this administration to make them victims of their culture wars. The VA used to be above politics. The VA used to be a place where people would go and receive health care based on their needs. They've served and sacrificed for their country. They have fought for this right. The VA is breaking its promise. It's betraying a trust. And we can't allow it to happen. I thank all of the veterans who are here today, all of the advocates. You are a formidable picture. And I want to thank all my colleagues from the House for being here and say how grateful I am as a veteran, but as a dad and a grandfather, that we are fighting hard for women's reproductive rights. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Thank you. I now want to hand the podium over to my longtime colleague, a classmate, and someone who sits on the Veterans Affairs Committee as the ranking member of the Health Subcommittee. Please welcome Congresswoman Julia Brownley.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ranking Member Takano. And I thank all of you for your continued fight for our nation's veterans and their families. As Ranking Member of the House Veteran Affairs Subcommittee on Health and a proud member of the Reproductive Freedom Caucus, I am here today because, like so many veterans and veteran advocates, I am appalled and disgusted by the Trump administration's cruel and reckless effort to roll back abortion protections for our women veterans. As women continue to comprise the fastest growing cohort and the most diverse group in our military and veteran community, it is more important than ever to ensure that their rights and access to comprehensive care are protected and that these rights are codified and protected by the law. Any attempt to gut VA's reproductive health services is not just wrong, it is a direct and dangerous attack on our women veterans. It's an attack that puts their health, their freedom, and in some cases, their very lives at risk. Like all women, women veterans deserve access to essential reproductive health care when and where they need it. To deny them this care is simply unacceptable. The Trump administration's decision to rescind VA's already limited abortion protections is an enormous step backwards, not only in safeguarding reproductive freedom, but in our broader commitment to our women veterans. The proposed rule would reinstate VA's near total abortion ban, even in cases of rape, incest, or threat to the veteran's health. It would strip away for veterans across the country, force them to go without essential health services, and even denying to the 700,000 family members who rely on the VA. We know the consequences. Women are denied care. Doctors are afraid to act. Patients are left to suffer, and lives are put in jeopardy. After the disastrous Dobbs ruling, we've seen women denied life-saving care, left to suffer in hospital parking lots, and told, come back only once they were close to death. Under this new rule, there is no clear guarantee that women veterans facing miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies, or other health-threatening complications will get the care they need.
Ben Haleman here from the Wisconsin Live Desk. All right, we got a lot going on at 1:38 in the afternoon. We've done the switcheroo between Carl Deffenbaugh and I. You're seeing some of the fights that are happening in Washington. This one saying protect veterans and talking about some of the abortion rights there. So that press conference continues. I got to take a quick break here. Before I do, I just want to show you some of the shots we are watching right now. There's a big sentencing happening. There's a live picture from the courthouse. Donovan Mitchell death. He was the man who died outside the Hyatt. One of the suspects is going to get sentenced today, so we're watching that. Up in Minneapolis, there is the vice president is visiting Annunciation Church where the terrible mass shooting happened. And there we could see some of the people who have gathered. I think that's the photographer who's in the way right there. But some of the people across the street, so we're watching that. Watching the weather here in Wisconsin is we do have some rain that's been moving through the area. It just moved through Milwaukee. Really light showers. It was pretty quick. So that's out of here. But yeah, and we got to talk to Christina Van Zelst. That's happening right after the break.
Live Desk.
My news nerds have gathered, people. It's the Wisconsin Live Desk, and it's Wednesday, 1:41. Thanks for joining us on what is a soggy Wednesday. It was raining 1 second ago in Milwaukee, but look at that. I see some peaks of blue sky over there, and the flag is a-flapping over City Hall. So we'll talk about the weather in a second here. But I need to bring in my colleague. We got to go down to Walworth County, Christina Van Zelst, Williams Bay, where they have been dealing with a water issue. They have not been allowed to drink their drinking water for several days. There was supposed to be an update last night. All right, Christina, what is the latest with the water situation?
Hey, Ben. So it's been almost a week since Williams Bay has been under this water alert. And just to take you back, what's going on here, the residents are not able to drink their water. You can't brush your teeth with this water because they say there are high levels of nitrate. And they found this after 2 kids tested for blue baby syndrome. So this has been ongoing for several days now. To give you a look at where we're at Pier 290. It's a restaurant here in Williams Bay. They're open. They had to close one day because of this alert, but want to show you what they're doing. So if you look at all of these jugs of water, they have ordered, so the ones in the back, those are already used, and then you have the ones up front. This is just their cooking water. So this is how they're managing to stay open in the kitchen. We talked with the executive chef, who actually says this has been a fun challenge for him, which is a very chef mentality that he has, but getting creative ways to cook and clean their produce in the kitchen. We got a front row seat to that. So this is just their cooking water. Then, Ben, want to take you outside. So we're standing in their boat showroom right now, but if you look outside, it's raining, which is why we're in here now. But that semi-trailer where you see someone picking up a bag of ice, that is filled with ice, pop, soda, whatever you want to call it, and water. So the front half of that is $8,000 worth of ice.
Wow.
And then the back half is their soda cans because they can't use their machines because those are all run through the water. So it's creative ways that this restaurant has used to remain open during this time, and that's how they're doing it. They say it's all hands on deck effort out here, and they are hoping to get an update maybe tomorrow. The executive director we talked to said that the city was out, the village was out here testing the water twice this morning at this location, and they were told hopefully tomorrow they'll have some sort of update. But it is really a challenge for people living here, having this many days go by without being able to drink your water, brush your teeth in it, and just wanting to cook safely as well.
Yeah, I'm learning so much. First of all, that kid looks so cold. Look, he's like blowing on his hands because look at, you can actually see. It's not steam, it's the opposite. It's like cold air just flooding out of that trailer. And he doesn't have his gloves as he's picking up probably like 1,000 bags of ice, this poor kid. But anyway, that's an interesting shot. I'm learning a lot through this story. I had no idea what blue baby syndrome was, never heard of it until, unfortunately, these 2 kids in Walworth County down there drank this water and got sick. But it's an issue that limits the oxygen your blood can intake. It's really serious. Now, Christina, a lot of people were thinking they would have an update by today. Have they been retesting the water and just not getting the results that they've wanted the last few days? Is the problems, it's with nitrites, right?
Yes, so that is what the village is saying is in the water, is unsafe levels of nitrates in the water, which when you're talking about blue baby syndrome, that's an illness that's often linked to contaminated water. So last night there was a town hall here. Hundreds of people showed up. A lot of people had questions for how did we get here and what is the plan moving forward. So they didn't really get a firm answer on when this water alert might be lifted. That is the big question that still lingers today. Again, the executive director here at Pier 290 said they did come out and test the water twice, once at 7 this morning and then another testing at 9 this morning, and they were told that hopefully they'll have some sort of update tomorrow. It sounds like they can expedite these tests, but obviously they do have to get those back to a lab and test the water. So what they're doing in the meantime is flushing everything with more chlorine in the water, because that is what kills the nitrate out of the system. So people are told, run your sinks for 15 minutes, run your shower for 15 minutes. Apparently you can shower safely in this water. It's the brushing your teeth that they have said to do with bottled water. So the big question still today is, when will this be lifted? And that is something that we still do not have an answer on.
Yeah, I mean, it worries me with someone with a kid too, because, you know, in a bath, obviously when you and I shower, we're not drinking the water out of the bathtub, but sometimes when your kids get in there, they take a whole mouthful. That's a concern. I've been to Pier 290 before. That's a fancy place, and obviously we're talking about Lake Geneva area. This is the money-making season, and these poor guys, I mean, you just talked about some of the money they have to spend here. But if they don't make the money now, I mean, it's a rainy day down there in Williams Bay. and right on Lake Geneva. But they have, I mean, they make all their money on that beautiful outdoor patio they have out there at Pier 290. And this is like the worst time of the year, it seems, with Labor Day weekend to have this happen to them.
Oh yeah, they talked about that. So they had to close on Friday. So they were closed one day, or it was Thursday or Friday, and then they got all of their resources together to make sure that they could stay open for Labor Day weekend. It's already a challenging weekend for them with staff because a lot of their staff goes back to school.
Right.
That plus this water alert, another challenge, but it was kind of fun talking to the chef, talking about how this was a unique challenge for him, and he kind of took up to it and was excited to figure out how they were going to stay open. So they did it, and I did ask, how much did this cost you to, buy all of these water jugs, plus when you walk into the restaurant, there's a huge pallet of water there, bottled water. They don't have exact numbers on that yet, but it's not something that it seems like they're concerned about. They more so wanted to take care of the people here, stay open safely, and that's what they did. And so far it's working, and it seems like there were people here for lunch, having a good time even on this rainy day.
Many of my teenage years were spent working in kitchens. It's been a long time since but I have friends who are chefs. Are you sure he said it was a fun challenge? There were no curse words said?
The chef did, but we didn't ask the people actually working in the kitchen other places. So the executive chef said, yeah, he was up for the challenge and he found it kind of fun, and no one else had a comment about that in the kitchen. We didn't ask them, the other people cooking, but it did seem like they were working well together in the back, and we have some video that you can see later today about what they're doing with the boiling the water and washing all the produce. And one thing that is a challenge is their salads. That's been the biggest thing that they've had to adjust. Yeah, is their salads. But they haven't taken anything off the menu. They've just adjusted it to keep it safe.
You can see it right in the room that you're in, all the water they brought in, and the poor kid who's freezing his bum off out in that trailer out there. Yeah, okay, so you have found apparently the nicest chef in the world who is not just cursing the world of this giant challenge. Look forward to your stories coming up tonight, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10 right here on Fox Local on Fox 6.
Awesome.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks for joining us on the live desk. I forget what I ordered at Pier 290, but they got good food. So try and get some food while you're down there. Appreciate it. Pier 290.
It smelled good in the kitchen, so yeah.
So good. Pier 290, it's like beautiful spot right there on Lake Geneva. And on the perfect weather night, you just go out there. It's just awesome. So thanks, Christina, for coming on the Wisconsin live desk. We've got this really important, just peek right quickly here into the Milwaukee County Courthouse. Big sentencing is happening, and we're going to take you there live next.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Ben Handelman, Wisconsin Live Desk 152. I want to get you inside the Milwaukee County Courthouse where we have a sentencing underway in the death of Devontae Mitchell. He was the man who was killed outside the Hyatt Regency after several employees, security guard, an off-duty security guard, jumped on top of him, and he was killed from asphyxiation. So a number of these guys are getting sentenced today. Let's just listen in real quick, and if there's some lulls in the action, I'll keep you up to date on some of the details of things that have already happened.
Condolences and remorse, and get his life back moving in the direction.
Devin Johnson Carson's on the left there. He's being sentenced right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson Carson, this is your chance to speak. Whatever you want to say, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. To those who may not know, my name is Devin Johnson Carson. I want to begin by giving my deepest and my most sincere condolences to the family of the departed. This tragedy is an incident of something that could have never been foreseen to take place in my life or imagined. I'm not a vengeful man, nor have I ever harbored hate in my heart for any person, I haven't harbored hate for anyone in my life, and I never will. It's so unfortunate that these are the circumstances in which we have crossed paths, in which I have crossed paths with many of you. Nothing brings a pure or more natural feeling of joy to my heart than serving others, being there for others, and sharing my heart with others. I'm sorry. This is why throughout my life, my success has lived in the realms of serving others, such as group homework, assisted living work, and even being part of a family business bar and grill, which I had discovered and re-sparked my love for kitchen and service work for the community. It's why I had taken the necessary steps, as Counselor Attorney Johnson has said, to go back to culinary this year. It was a plan I had set for myself 2 years ago to bring myself on track and give myself a limit to take that goal and run with it. But I do want to emphasize more than anything, whatever message that I could speak from, that I do hold a deep sense of regret and remorse for this tragedy and for the situation. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right. Those are all the speakers for this particular case. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to take a moment. I'll explain the sentence in just a moment.
Okay, two of these men who were charged already sentenced today. That includes Brandon Turner, who was there in June 30th, 2024, when Devontae Mitchell ran into the hotel, was on drugs, ran into a bathroom, and as workers tried to get him out of the hotel, he was beaten, held down to the ground, and then ended up dying. Now, all of the suspects here, Brandon Turner, Herbert Williamson, Todd Erickson, and Devin Johnson Carson, they all pleaded guilty in this case. And I will tell you, Brandon Turner got 12 months probation. Herbert Williamson got time served.
Back on the record.
And this is Devin Johnson Carson. Let's see what he gets.
Yeah, this is still a very difficult day for everyone. I appreciate your patience as we work through these hearings. With any sentence, the court has to order the mandatory parts of the sentence first. And I'll start with that. Here we're talking about a single count of misdemeanor battery. And with that type of offense, Mr. Johnson Carson, you are required to provide a DNA sample to the state crime lab and to pay a DNA surcharge for this one count. You are advised that if this conviction is reversed, set aside, or vacated, you may qualify to have that DNA sample data expunged if you meet other conditions under statute. In terms of the sentence, when the court determines a sentence, we look at certain factors, and these are determined by our statutes and case law. We start with the gravity of the offense. And here we have a terrible offense overall. The This was an offense where Mr. Devontae Mitchell's life was taken illegally, but the role that Mr. Johnson Carson played in that was very limited. I think that's very clear from the video. If anyone watching that video would see that he's not involved in the initial altercation. He becomes involved, it appears, and while there's not sound, Mr. Mitchell is tussling with security at the hotel, and as a bellman, Mr. Johnson Carson gets involved, and in viewing the video, it appears that he's acting at the direction of what would be employees who are senior to him, either the security people who are on scene or the Mrs. Ball, who was also on scene and was a hotel employee. Mr. Johnson Carson was by far the youngest of any of the people involved here. He was only 23 years old at the time, and that's an extremely young age. He's now only 24. He has no criminal record. We could call an OAR a criminal offense. I know typically it is referred to as a lower level offense, but it is practically not an offense given what this court typically sees in cases of this type. So when we talk about the gravity of the offense, this is a situation where while Mr. Johnson Carson was involved, it was a very limited involvement. He did help restrain Mr. Mitchell, but given where he was positioned down by Mr. Mitchell's legs, it's not clear at all that he would have been aware that Mr. Mitchell was struggling to breathe or that death was a possible outcome here, given his very young age and the very limited role he played in what was going on. So when I look at the gravity of the offense, in Mr. Johnson Carson's case, again, this is a very limited role he played in partially leading to the death of Mr. Mitchell. Now next I look at his character and rehabilitative needs. And here, when Mr. Johnson refers to letters, this is not a small number of letters. We're talking about well over 35 letters I received on behalf of Mr. Johnson Carson. And I did really read those letters. It's an impressive set of recommendations for Mr. Johnson Carson's character and how he has conducted himself as a young man who's trying to get started in life, who was drawn into something that he did not understand, and frankly, it's clear from the video, even though he at times followed probably his best instincts, which were not to get involved. He at times was involved, but again in a limited way. I don't see rehabilitative needs here. When I read those letters, what I see is a young man who has led a very pro-social life. He's finished high school, he's worked steadily as a young man. He lost his job due to this event and has spent a year still working, but in different jobs. He's also been under supervision for the past year, as all the defendants have in these cases. And he's had essentially a perfect record while on supervision. So when I look at his rehabilitative needs, I just don't see it. When I next look at the need to protect the public, there is nothing in this record that indicates that Mr. Johnson Carson is a danger to the public. That's our top state sentencing objective, is protection of the public. Next, we look at rehabilitation. And again, I don't see rehabilitative needs here. Last, we look at deterrence. And I think that's the only issue that remains, is how to deter individuals in our community who might want to, or who might feel the need to get involved in a situation like this. I will note Mr. Johnson Carson has already paid a significant price for his part in this tragedy. He spent 4 days in jail. He's been under supervision for a year. He lost his job. He's hired counsel, and all of those are significant deterrents, this court believes, to this type of conduct. So when I look at our state sentencing objectives, I find that an appropriate sentence here could include probation. This case clearly would qualify for probation. It is the state's recommendation. Confinement is not necessary here to protect the public from further criminal activity of this defendant. I do not see that he needs any correctional treatment that's available only if confined, and it would not unduly depreciate the seriousness of this crime if probation were granted. So I agree that this case is appropriate for probation. However, I also don't see any probationary needs. There's no rehabilitative guidance needed for Mr. Johnson Carson. He is doing all the things we would ask a young man to do, and he's been doing them the last year under supervision, but he was also doing it prior to that, before he was under supervision. So again, given all of these factors and objectives, what the court finds is that a time-served disposition is appropriate here. So the court is ordering that Mr. Johnson Carson serve 4 days in the county jail. I find he has served those 4 days. He's granted 4 days time-served credit. The court is not ordering any restitution in this case. There is no claim. The court is also not ordering any fines. The court waives all waivable costs. The court does order, though, that Mr. Johnson Carson pay all mandatory costs, surcharges, and assessments. He's ordered to pay those within 1 year of today's date. Any monetary amounts that remain unpaid when the sentence is completed are ordered reduced to a judgment against Mr. Johnson Carson for any unpaid balance and collection, and then proceed as provided by statute. Now, the defense also raised the Section 973.015 disposition. We also call that expungement. That is a possibility given Mr. Johnson Carson's age. Because he was under the age of 25 at the time this offense was committed, he is eligible for expungement if the court finds that it's appropriate. And when the court addresses expungement, we look at 2 factors. First, would it benefit the defendant to obtain expungement of this record in any way? And here, it clearly would benefit Mr. Johnson Carson. He has no criminal record to speak of, and this would be his only conviction. So he satisfies that first factor. Our second factor is, would it benefit society and the public if Mr. Johnson Carson were to obtain expungement? And having read through all those letters, and having heard from Mr. Johnson Carson in court, and being familiar with the case, I find that it would benefit our society for Mr. Johnson Carson to be able to fully participate as a citizen in all of the things that citizens can participate in. This case was a case of a very bad judgment exercised by a very young man under terrible circumstances that he could not have planned for, where he was clearly under the influence of much older individuals who were setting the tone for that situation. And so, given all of these factors, I find it would benefit society for Mr. Johnson Carson to obtain an expungement. So the court is granting expungement, provided Mr. Johnson Carson complies with the terms of this order and completes payment of all amounts required within this 1 year time frame. Sir, you do have the right to appeal. Any notice of intent to pursue post-conviction relief must be filed with the clerk of this court within 20 days of sentencing. Your lawyer must continue to represent you until your decision to seek post-conviction relief or not is made. If you wish to seek that relief, your lawyer must file that notice within this 20-day time period. Or is there anything I haven't covered? Mr. Flaherty?
No, thank you.
And Mr. Johnson?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That concludes our third sentencing hearing today. We'll be proceeding at about 3 o'clock with the last hearing for the day. We're on break until then. Court is adjourned.
That is a big win there for Devin Johnson Carson, who was working the front desk the day that Devontae Mitchell was killed in front of the Hyatt Regency in downtown Milwaukee. You might remember this story from June of 2024. It was right before the RNC that this had occurred. And there were 4 individuals who were charged. All of them pled guilty, and they're all being sentenced today. And the judge just saying that the guy right here who's working behind the front desk had a very limited role in the death, was the youngest of everyone involved, kind of got roped into this thing, and therefore sentenced him to time served. He spent 4 days in jail. And if he stays clear for the next year, this could be expunged from his record as if it never even happened, this guilty plea. So definitely a big win in court for Devin Johnson Carson. The next sentencing will be the most interesting of the day. Todd Erickson, he was one of the security guards, and many, including the family of Devontae Mitchell, who said he was the most egregious and the one who actually caused this death. As we watch him here, we walk out of court, this would be a very happy defendant here with Devin Johnson Carson. Let's see if we can see his facial reaction here. As we just heard him a minute ago apologizing to the family. Looks like they're going to go back and sign some paperwork in the back there with his attorney there. All right, so yeah, this has been just a really interesting day in the courthouse because there's 4 of these guys who are all being sentenced. So what we know, Brandon Turner, who was an off-duty security guard, got 12 months probation. Herbert Williamson, he was the bellhop, big guy, also just got time served. Devin Johnson Carson, he was one of the, again, he was the front desk guy, just got time served. Now we go to Todd Erickson, who was one of the security guards. So just to bring you back to some of the details here, again, this was all June 30th, 2024. Turner and a hotel guest. Well, this all started with Devontae Mitchell running into the hotel, running into a restroom and locking himself into the women's restroom with two women who later told investigators that Mitchell tried to lock them in there, that he appeared paranoid. So Turner and a hotel guest went in there, grabbed him out of the bathroom, out of the hotel, and on the way, these other individuals kind of jumped in to help out. So Turner, Erickson, Williamson, and Johnson Carson, they then got him out in front by where you'd enter the hotel, pinned him to the ground, and for 8 or 9 minutes, they held him there as Mitchell said he was struggling to breathe, and eventually he did pass away. So that's what is leading us to today after all 4 of these individuals have pled guilty, and we're waiting to see if any of them will spend, well, now we know 3 of them not serving really any significant time in jail or prison. But Todd Erickson, that'll be an interesting one, and that's coming up in less than an hour down there at the Milwaukee County Courthouse. Here's what I'm going to do. I see I've got a couple of feeds, including a really interesting ceremony taking place in Washington, D.C. So let's take a break and see what the last 20 minutes here on the Wisconsin Live Desk will bring us.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Ben Handelman from the Wisconsin Live Desk, 2:11 in the afternoon. It has been a very busy hour and a half here on the Wisconsin Live Desk as we're getting ready for our last segment here. Excuse me, as I've got a little cough. I want to bring you into Washington, D.C. This is a really interesting ceremony. This is a Harlem Hellfighters are being posthumously granted the Congressional Gold Medal. These were soldiers who fought 191 days in trenches
from the 3rd District of New York
during World War I. Obviously, they are not alive
Good
today, but their
afternoon.
family members are, and
Good
they're getting
afternoon.
special recognition today.
Let me
The
first
audio's a
start by
little
thanking
funky, but
Speaker
we'll try
Johnson
and dip in here for a little
scheduling
bit.
us here today. Let's give him a big thank you. It's never too late to do the right thing. So the first thing I want to do is give a big thank you, and let's hear it for the families of the Harlem Hellfighters that are with us here today. Stand up, Harlem Hellfighter families. Stand up and be recognized.
Do you know what's going on in ELC4?
Today we honor the legacy of your fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers who served our nation under extreme circumstances and despite intense discrimination. We are all better for their service. I'm so grateful to Deb Willett for bringing this to my attention, to the North Shore Historical Museum for their research and advocacy. Thank you especially to Congressman Adriana Espaillat, who represents Harlem, and Congresswoman Beatty, who was the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus back in 2021, and to all 311 of my colleagues, both Republicans and Democrats in the House, who co-sponsored this legislation, and to Senator Gillibrand and Senator Schumer, who carried it in the Senate. A special thank you also to Cindy Rogers, Sidney Harvey, Dr. Richard Harris, and Colonel Kowalski Salter. Let's give them all a big thank you. In 2019, the Willett family from Glen Cove, my hometown, told me about their grandfather, Sergeant Leander Willett, who served bravely with the Harlem Hellfighters in World War I. Sergeant Willett was stabbed with a bayonet, he was attacked with mustard gas, and yet despite his sacrifice, he never received a Purple Heart. He died long before we could properly honor him. In 2019, I had the great privilege of presenting Sergeant Willett's daughter, Clara, with her father's long overdue Purple Heart. It was, of course, very moving. But Sergeant Willett was far from the only soldier with that experience. In fact, over 40 Harlem Hellfighters were from my hometown, from the city of Glen Cove and the surrounding areas. And over 2,500 Harlem Hellfighters served over the course of World War I. With the help of Congressman Espaillat, Congresswoman Beatty, Senator Gillibrand, Senator Schumer, we did the research, we got the co-sponsors, and had this gold medal signed into law by President Biden back in 2021. When I returned to Congress in early 2024, after a brief hiatus, one of the first things I did was to write Speaker Johnson, seek him out on the floor several times, and ask him to schedule this ceremony. And finally, we are here today to say with one voice to the Harlem Hellfighters, thank you. You will never be forgotten. The Harlem Hellfighters gave everything for America. Today, America tries to give back. This medal will stand for them, their families, their descendants, and for every American who believes in courage, sacrifice, and service. It's never too late to do the right thing. To the Harlem Hellfighters and their families, congratulations and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Adriano Espaillat, United States Representative from the 13th District of New York.
Good afternoon, everyone. Speaker Johnson, thank you. Leader Jeffries, Secretary, Senator Gillibrand, and my colleagues, Joyce Beatty, and of course, Tom Swazi.
All right, we're going to keep watching this, but I want to get you to the Waukesha County courtroom.
Important event.
Let's see if we can dip in here. Our picture has just frozen. We're waiting on a Waukesha stabbing suspect. They're investigating a series of knife crimes. So, what we've learned, September 1st, 2 men got into a fight at Waukesha's Hope Center, where people come, for clothes and shelter and meals. And Waukesha police say on Monday they arrested a 43-year-old man after he stabbed another man outside of the building. Officers found the victim about a mile away. And so the suspect, we've got a really poor quality image here. We're waiting for Michael Freed to walk into the courtroom. And I'm not sure if we're getting audio from this feed right now. Okay, so as we wait for this, I think that might be the suspect there, but I'm not 100% sure. We're in court. Waukesha intake court is a tricky spot, I will say, because it's in the basement and our gear uses cell phone signals, and there is really bad cell phone service in there. So I think that's the challenge we're facing as we're trying to broadcast this live for you. As someone who's reported in that room several times, down there in the basement of the Waukesha County Courthouse, and it's like underneath the jail. Okay, we'll get you back to that. Let's get you back out to this Congressional Medal of Honor ceremony, and I'll keep trying to work on what we're seeing out there in Waukesha County.
Importantly, enshrined in our Constitution, despite doing so at a time when Black Americans did not enjoy the very freedoms that they fought to protect. So that is why we're so important that we're here today, giving this day, this moment, to the Harlem Hellfighters. They join other units of the armed forces that have distinguished themselves with valor in the field of battle. And we will forever now remember them with this congressional medal that will forever be in the records of Congress as a proper recognition of what they gave to our nation. Let's never forget Harlem. Let's never forget the Harlem Hellfighters. God bless you and keep the faith.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Joyce Beatty, United States Representative from the 3rd District of Ohio.
I am honored to stand here alongside distinguished leaders in Congress, the administration, and our armed forces. Mr. Speaker, Leader Jeffries, U.S. Secretary of Defense, and my good friend and Senator Gillibrand. But I am especially proud to be here with families of the 369th Infantry Regiment, the Harlem Hellfighters. Your presence reminds us that this is not only history, this is family, this is legacy. This is sacrifice written in black blood, sweat, and tears, passed from one generation to the next. And as an Ohioan and Chair Emerita of the Congressional Black Caucus, I was proud to join my friend and colleague, the Congressman from New York, Tom Suozzi, joined with the Congressman from Harlem, as he would say, Congressman Adriana Espaillat, to introduce the Harlem Hellfighters Congressional Gold Medal Act of the 117th Congress, and that President Biden signed into law on August 25th, 2021. And I am proud that Ohioans were among the many who served and sacrificed with the Harlem Hellfighters. Tom, thank you. Thank you for your vision.
I know, so that I'm not sure about. I can have a
Waukesha County Court, the signal, let's try this a little better. Stabbing suspects in court. Let's listen.
In the complaint would be assigned as a victim and to get a victim ID key filed.
All right, it's a disorderly conduct, not a battery, but it is like, there's some allegation of
Yeah, we're just freezing up here. Again, of this suspect.
The state is asking
charged
for
with
that
knife
given that
crimes.
this is a charge as a violent crime due to the use of a dangerous weapon.
the audio.
And the court can consider the totality of the circumstances. The state is also asking for conditions of no contact with the Hope Center, no contact with Justin Barfield. That's Barfield.
I think we'll listen in.
SB and
because this is not going to take very long.
The state believes cash is appropriate here, given the need to protect the public from this defendant.
See, it's the Wisconsin Live Desk, so we'll just kind of experience this together.
Include
So we're trying to get our
robbery with
update
use
from
of
Waukesha
force,
County Court.
escape.
Okay, apparently there have been like several of these knife crime incidents all near the Hope Center, and now
The allegations in the
the
criminal
suspect's been arrested. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break here on the live desk, and we'll see if our signal improves here. If not, well, hopefully we'll have an update for you on the other side. Stay with us.
Charge significantly different than how.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Ah, my news nerds, you are my people. Ben Handelman here from the Wisconsin Live Desk. We only have 5 more minutes left here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. It's been an adventure. We're dealing with some technical issues, and I'm still trying to figure out what's going on out in Waukesha County Court. Here's what I can tell you from the, very bad audio that's been coming into this room.
Back, although I don't often see
This
that they
guy
put
is
bans on
accused of stabbing another man.
put no contact
His
order
lawyer
with
just says the other
Mr.
guy he
Barfield,
stab's
and if
not a
he's
good
there,
guy either,
then obviously
and
Mr.
is
Creed
a
cannot be
friend
there,
of the
but I would
court,
ask
shall
that
we
the court
say.
consider not taking away that.
And they're fighting over bail amounts, I believe. But there have been a series of knife incidents near the Hope Center. That's an area where people go and get some supplies if you're in need, like clothes. I think you can get meals out there too.
Has a fairly long criminal record. I got allegations of violence. I have allegations of use of a weapon. Total exposure amongst the 3 cases. Granted, they're misdemeanors because of the repeater.
Yeah, our audio and video is just bad, again, because it's kind of a tough room in the Waukesha County Courthouse to get live signals out of.
We got multiple. It's just a messy complaint. A lot's going on here. It's not good, and it makes you wonder about whether or not this gentleman will obey the rules of coming to court, obeying the rules, the bond release that I set for him.
Okay, court commissioner does not sound like he's happy with Michael
Violence
Freed.
here at a center that caters to the homeless. I mean, he was difficult with the police. He was armed with a knife. It's a messy complaint. It's very concerning to this court. Court's going to do the following on this case, I believe, is to be a proper amount of bail given the amount, all the factors the court takes. The court will consider setting bond. I'll set bail in the amount of $750. Conditions include absolutely no contact with Justin Barfield, no violent contact with the Hope Center. He can't be causing a disturbance there. I'm not going to pull away the possibility of that center giving him services, but any violence, any disturbance at the Hope Center on Broadway here in Waukesha shall be considered a violation of his bond. Appear in person for all future court dates, no violations rising level of probable cause, absolute sobriety, no use or possession of any alcohol, no use or possession of a controlled substance. If prescribed, take as prescribed. Operate with any ID processing needed and necessary. He can report to WCS for level 2 monitoring. Just check on him, see how he's doing. I do that because the report I have, it's level 2. I'll adopt that public service safety assessment form to come in. On level 2, are you seeking some sort of drug testing over there at WCS, or what would you prefer? I'm not seeking that, but okay. So level 2 monitoring by WCS.
Just when we needed it the most, it finally came in, and now it's gone back out again. With this live picture from the Waukesha County Court, as we're struggling a signal there. Michael Freed, he's the defendant, charged with stabbing another man outside the Hope Center, and they just sent his bail at, and there's a good picture of him because we've had trouble with our audio, $750. $750 bail for that guy for this alleged stabbing. We got the story on FOX6Now.com if you want to check it out. All right, so all the stories that you've watched here in the last hour here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, this is the joy of streaming. You can find all these stories right here on your Fox Local app. So that's the excitement of being here. Let's see what's next for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Ooh, First and North is coming up in just seconds here. We're going to probably talk a lot about Micah Parsons. Thanks for joining us. Same time, same place tomorrow. What do you say?